It's a great pleasure. So we'll try to speak a little about coming to Krishna consciousness. When I first came as a reporter during a magazine article for HG magazine, I was fascinated to ask everyone how they came to become a devotee. It was fascinating to me because of the vast difference between the Western culture and the Indian culture. To see Westerners with shaved heads, robes, dhotis, and saris was quite revolutionary. It caused a big sensation in the West and also in India when Prabhupada took his first disciples back. So we'll look at some of those early times starting in 1970. So this was the Henry Street Temple in New York. And this is the first exposure I had to Krishna consciousness. I was asked by the editor of Asia magazine to do a story in the Hare Krishna Temple in New York. Somehow or other, I liked my photographs. I took a lot of photographs on the ISKCON in Malaysia. And so he called me up one day and asked me to do a magazine article. When I first came in, I like to say, the boys asked me, when did you first to meet Prabhupada? I like to say that I first met his potency. I didn't meet him personally, but I came to his temple. And everything that Prabhupada set up was wonderful. It was transcendental. So, his first arti ceremony, I had the feeling that this was my eternal occupation to worship the Lord. And it was kind of realization. I don't know where that was coming from. It was quite strong. This is a magazine article that came out in January 1971. It went to 630,000 copies, were distributed all over in 9 countries in Southeast Asia. It's interesting because Prabhupada toured that part of the world, Malaysia, just a month after that magazine was released. This was just Krishna's arrangement. I was in photography school. I met my wife in photography school. And I was a little older. I was 27 and she was 19. So if you read her book, she's written a wonderful account of her time with Prabhupada called 5 years, 11 months, and a lifetime of unexpected love. That was her time with Prabhupada. And that time with Prabhupada was 6 years, 1 month, 2 months earlier. So she wrote the article. She came with me to do the article. Thing is, she was an atheist and a very good preacher of atheism. That ability and intellectual capacity served her well later on when she came in contact with devotees. So it came time for me to do my master's thesis in photography. I decided to go to India because I was attracted. Go to India and meet Prabhupada and do my thesis on the ISKCON in India. So when Prabhupada went back sometime in August of 1970, it caused a sensation. This was the first time that Prabhupada brought a large group of his Western disciples back to India. And Indians were thrilled. They just could not believe Western Vaishnavas coming to their shores after hundreds of years of subjugation by the Muslims and the British. You all know this story. So yeah, it was a wonderful time. Prabhupada, many people in India knew that Prabhupada had come to the West, especially the leaders of India. Because Prabhupada preached many times. He cultivated the leadership in India. He wanted the leaders to understand the importance of Krishna consciousness. So when Prabhupada went back to India, there were huge programs Thousands of people came to see the Western Vaishnava Prabhupada. We were nicknamed the Dancing White Elephants. So this is an amazing little, actually this is a single movie frame. The colored pictures that you'll see in the beginning of the program are taken from a single movie frame. There's 24 frames in a second of film. We're not talking about video, we're talking about film. So I've taken little one frame of that 24 frames a second and made still photographs. So this picture really illustrates the prediction of Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur that people from all different races would come together under the banner of Harinam. That's Tamal Krishna, that's Adhikari then, Dinanath in the center, and then Bhanu Das Brahmachari, now Bhanu Swami on the right. So Prabhupada, at this particular program, jumped down off the stage and started dancing in the midst of the devotees. Everybody went wild. So Prabhupada's idea was to tour India and have very large programs. And the devotees went by train. Sometimes Prabhupada went by train also. But at every stop, the devotees would jump down off the train and have kirtan. And immediately hundreds of people would gather. As you know, in India, if anything unusual is happening, you know, a big crowd immediately. So this was amazing. I mean, pretty soon the whole of India knew about the devotees very quickly. Also in the West, Prabhupada did the same thing with Harinam Sankirtan. He introduced it very early in the movement where devotees were going out 10 and 12 hours a day in the major cities. So very quickly also in the West, people came to know. So this is where I met Prabhupada. I met Prabhupada in the town of Surat, Gujarat. So I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I just showed up. And I didn't have any contact. Actually, I had one contact in Mumbai. I went to that home and knocked on the door, and the man answered and said, "I'm sorry, they've just gone to Surat." So he put me on the train, and I was there at night, and I knocked on the, actually, I didn't have an address, actually. The Surat I thought was a little village, but it was a large town. Anyway, the rickshaws came out to me and I said, "American Hare Krishna." Everybody knew where they were. So I immediately went to the house and knocked on the door. And it was amazing to see the person who answered the door was Rishi Kumar Prabhu, a Western Vaishnava who was the president of the New York Temple when I did the article. I was surprised to see him, and he was shocked to see me. So he took me to see Prabhupada. I showed Prabhupada that article. I said, "Go to the next." This is Changing Bodies. So yeah, this is a pearl among swans, long hair and mustache. So Prabhupada asked me when I met him, and asked if I could travel with the party for a couple of months, and said, "Are you going to become a devotee?" So on my condition, I said, "I don't think so, Prabhupada." And then so Prabhupada said, "Then you cannot stay." I was shocked. I didn't know anyone. I was 10,000 miles from home. What to do? Anyway, the devotees put me up that night in the house. I got up the next morning and nobody said anything. And Prabhupada didn't say anything, and I stayed for 2 months. So from that I knew that Prabhupada could understand my heart because I had some little attraction. And that was the unique feature of Prabhupada. He could tell basically what we were thinking, and he could see the covering of the mind and the body and the intellect, but he also spoke to the soul. There's one beautiful story from my god sister. She said, "When I met Prabhupada, I had a distinct feeling that this is the first person who ever loved me." So that was quite an unusual statement. We think, what about family? What about friends? But most often it's the body and the mind that we're seeing and dealing with. The Prabhupada saw directly to the soul. So that's why she felt love, because there's attraction, there's love between soul and soul in a very pure way. So Surat was a photographer's dream. Coming from the streets of New York to Surat, it was like the boys were received like demigods. This is the second night I was there. You can see the streets of Surat were just packed. Everyone came out. So Prabhupada had kirtan and a lecture, and he asked his disciples to speak one after another. And then he turned to me and asked me to speak. Another shock. So I said, I just expressed my appreciation for the reception the people of Surat gave Prabhupada. It's an amazing, as you can see, an amazing, wonderful reception. So there was Harinam Sankirtan through the streets every day, and the newspaper would print the route of the devotees in each section of the city every day. That particular section, the streets would be decorated, and people would know to receive the devotees when they came through. You can see how eager they are to receive the devotee. Is that picture clear? Okay. Actually, the mayor of Surat, he said at that time, even if Indira Gandhi, the prime minister, had come, she would not have received the grand welcome that Prabhupada received. We could not go more than a few yards before garlands and drinks and sandal were placed. Party for the Harinam party. This is Malati Devi. Did Malati Devi come here to the temple? No? Steady every day in his program. That's really the secret of how steady like that we can make. Everywhere we went, we had Harinam. This is Srila Prabhupada leading the Boy Scouts in Harinam. See that training for Dhamma? This is Mongol arti in Srila Prabhupada's room. Probably the most intense Mongol arti I've ever been to. Prabhupada and 25 devotees. Prabhupada would often ask her to sing. Of course, she leads the greeting of the deities every morning in all the temples around the world. And Prabhupada was tireless. All the leaders of the town would come and listen to Prabhupada. There's one Mataji in the back, her name was Kaushalya Devi. She memorized the entire Ishopanishad and sang it. So Prabhupada would often ask her to sing in front of audiences. So the man in the Gandhi cap, not the one paying pranams to Prabhupada, but the one on the right of him, he was our host, Mr. Jerry Wall. He was the banker. And he had a 5-story house, so all the boys were staying there, including Prabhupada and myself. When we were leaving, Mr. Jerry Waller came and begged forgiveness for all of his offenses. And Prabhupada looked at us and he said, "This is a Vaishnava." He didn't commit any offense. We committed offenses in his house. Not really knowing the culture. I was one of the oldest devotees there at age 27. You can imagine how we acted sometimes. Mr. Jerry Wall is a wonderful, humble man. The Prabhupada then took us to the Kumbh Mela, 1971, in Allahabad. And Prabhupada asked us to do three things, his disciples to do. have Harinam Sankirtan every day. We also prasadam distribution and deity worship. There's a lineup of early devotees here. Bhaktivedanta Prabhu on the redundant kind of thing, call maybe. On the left, Tamal Krishna plus Adhikari at the time. And Aravinda in the blanket, Prabhupada's servant. And the left of Prabhupada, Achyutananda Swami. And then Giri Das Brahmachari with the blanket over his head. Giri Das Swami. And Yamuna Devi in the yellow hat, and then Hansadeva Prabhu. This man would seek out Prabhupada every day and pay obeisances when he found him, and get up and start jumping up and down. The Prabhupada liked him very much, very enthusiastic. And there's baby Saraswati on Shamsundar Prabhu's shoulder. Saraswati, whenever there was kirtan, she'd raise her arms up and start chanting. She would go up to people and pull on their dhoti or sari and say, "Guess what?" And they look down and they say, "What?" She said, "Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you should surrender to him." And then run away to the next person. Prabhupada said she was a great preacher because she just simply repeated what she knew. So Prabhupada could have stayed in the hotel, he could have stayed at the Gaudiya Math, where he served for many years. But he preferred to stay with his disciples, always. And this time in a very cold tent, with no heat. And then one day Prabhupada took us to the Gaudiya Math, where he served for many years. He was a pharmacist in Allahabad. That's the Sri Rupa Gaudiya Math. And then Prabhupada took us to Benares. There was a festival of Lord Chaitanya meeting Srila Rupa Goswami, instructing him for 10 days. So again, wherever Prabhupada wanted, he was received in a grand fashion, this time taken through the streets of Benares. That's Srila Swami on the lower left. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai. So this is a Western style kurta. One devotee, Mataji in San Francisco, wanted to make Prabhupada a shirt. She was thinking what style to make. And then she thought, Prabhupada's a cowboy, I'll just make a Western style. Prabhupada wore that all over India. And then to Mumbai, at the gateway of India. So here Prabhupada had another very big Pongal program. This is the Cross Maidan Pongal. And this is where Prabhupada called, from the way in the back of the audience, there was one Western sadhu. Prabhupada called up stage and had him sit next to him. You know who that is? Radha Swami. And this is amazing because he asked Gurudas to find the Western side of Gurudas couldn't even see him. Way in the back. So this is an example of Prabhupada's, you could say, mystic power. He knew the future. So actually there were two other devotees who came to that Pongal program. One was Lokanath Swami, and the other one was Dani Hartaprabhu. Dani Hartaprabhu was from Canada. So he was listening to Prabhupada speak, but he really couldn't understand it very well. But one thing came through, and that was the word surrender. So eventually he did surrender, become a disciple. This is a wedding ceremony between Bhaktivedanta Prabhu and Padmavati. And Bhaktivedanta Prabhu was from Sweden, and Padmavati was from Australia. Do you know that? Anyone? Anyway, this is in front of 20,000 people. At the end of the program, 10-day program, this is the final day. So Prabhupada gave a talk, and at the end of the talk he said, "This is the real United Nations." And everybody cheered. Very cool. And, this is Subal Swami doing the fire sacrifice. As you can see that western side of Radha Swami in the upper left. I think this is the only picture we have of him at that time. This is from a film frame, so it's very blurry. Do you see him? Yeah. Upper left. This is one of my favorite shots of Prabhupada. After the program, he was just beaming, blissful. Have you seen this picture? So Jean was back in America wondering what happened to John. And I invited her to come to India, so she joined me during the Cross Maidan program at Deepangal. So I was done with my master's thesis, photographing the devotees. Vishaka had an idea, or Jane had an idea to do a photographic essay on a quaint Indian village, untouched by Western technology. So we didn't know where to go, so we asked Prabhupada, where should we go? And Prabhupada said, wherever you go, you'll get your camera stolen, and they will cheat you. A little discouraging. But then he said, best you go to Vrindavan. So Vishaka at that time, I mentioned before, was an atheist. And she was kind of, looking to bring me back to normalcy, so-called normalcy. But I was, by that time, I was very happy to be in association with devotees. Wanted her to also become happy. So before we went to Vrindavan, we wandered the streets of Mumbai, taking some of our art photographs. He was outside of the Cross Maidan Pandal. Nobody was paying attention. So first we went to Nepal. It was a beautiful time of year, spring, summer. And we hiked up very high in the mountains, at 10,000 feet. And we found a deserted cavern. And we stayed here for 5 days. I brought one copy of Bhagavad Gita in the first Macmillan edition with a blue cover. And she read that book. It was the first time in her life that she thought she might be something other than the body and the mind. So she had some spark of interest. And then we came back down to Vrindavan. And her favorite place to photograph was inside the temple with the widows chanting Hare Krishna. That one of the 5 important items of devotional service is to live in a holy dawn. The Prabhupada knew exactly how to preach to this child, an atheist. So we spent about a month here, and then Gurudas and Yamuna Devi came through Vrindavan. They invited us to come to Calcutta to do a Jasa Puja book for Prabhupada. It was July 1971. So we went to Calcutta. I'm distributing BTGs there. And there was actually, a Calcutta temple was unusual at that time because The women stayed in the third floor, and the only way they could get to the temple was through the one bathroom in the temple. So they had to get up very early, bathe, get dressed, and then rush into the temple to give men the time to. It was a difficult time because of so many, immaturity and not knowing the culture. So Prabhupada was coming to the temple at one point, and everybody had their grievances, and they used to go to express some of their grievances. So Prabhupada listened very carefully, but then he started talking about the difficulty of him coming to America, all the difficulty he had to go through. And our difficulties seemed very small after listening to Prabhupada. He just kind of diffused all the problems just by a few words and by his presence. So I took Diksha at this time when Prabhupada came to Calcutta. And then Prabhupada took us to Delhi. And again received by the mayor of Delhi and some dignitaries. And again a huge Pangal program. So some devotees think that Prabhupada wasn't very successful before he came to America. But he was very successful in preaching to the intellectual class, the leaders, the people who had influence. So they received us very warmly, sometimes had engagements in their homes, organized lots of programs. And Prabhupada was hugely successful in preaching for leadership. And here are the deities of Radha Gokulananda. So today, Radha Gokulananda are in the Bhaktivedanta manor. How many have been to the Bhaktivedanta manor? If you get a chance, please visit. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. And guess what? Vishakadev is the president of the Bhaktivedanta manor. So, Prabhupada's mystic potency, we can say, in converting atheists to theists and even presidents. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The Prabhupada gave us a tour of Vrindavan. We'll never see Vrindavan like this again, because Prabhupada has brought the world to Vrindavan. And of course, that's a wonderful thing, but it has some drawbacks also. We don't see the peaceful Vrindavan we knew of here. Prabhupada didn't carry it straight up the steps of the Prashana. It took us to all the holy places. And Prabhupada's telling the story of Mother Yashoda looking for dirt in Krishna's mouth and seeing the universe. So we took a bath in the Yamuna. That's Radha Swami again in the water, halfway in the water, in the lower part of the program. But anytime, actually, he came out of, he met Prabhupada across Maidan Pandal, then he went back to the Himalayas. And then he heard Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, so he came back down to Vrindavan. And wherever Prabhupada was, he would search him out and try to find him every day. So this is Prabhupada's. Initially, Prabhupada didn't want to come in the water, but finally we begged him to join us. And Prabhupada's bath was 3 dips. This is Prabhupada's godbrother, Dr. O.B.L. Kapoor. They were very, very close friends. Radhikeshwar Kapoor. So we had a wedding ceremony in Vrindavan, and Jean was initiated at that time. But we only have one photo of our wedding, black and white. I think about both our daughters, thousands of photos and videos. But anyway, we were the photographers in the ceremony. At one point, Malati rushed up to Vishaka and she said, Vishaka, where's your camera? So she took this one picture. Prabhupada's on the left, unfortunately he's not in the picture, he was on the asana on the left. And we started traveling with Prabhupada and taking photographs. So Vishaka Devi was pretty much the only lady up and down to the morning walk. And then I went to Jaipur. And the Queen of Jaipur hosted Prabhupada in her palace. And she gave us also quarters. And then every day we had Mahaprasadam from Bhaktivedanta. A very wonderful time. And again, Prabhupada drums through the streets of Jaipur in grand procession. And then to Mayapur. That's the yoga peak in the upper left. You can hardly see it, white building. You'll never see Mayapur like this again also. It's a small city. This is the first Gaur Purnim Festival, 1972. Just after Prabhupada got the property, the land. And the only permanent structure at that time was Prabhupada's hut. And Prabhupada looked very at home and comfortable and glorious in that grass hut. He told us at one point, he said, even if you build me the biggest palace, I prefer to stay here. One time Prabhupada was drinking milk in the hut. We all gathered around. And one devotee asked, I think it was Brahmatirtha Prabhu. Perfect questions, perfect answers. He had a lot of questions for Prabhupada at that time. So he asked Prabhupada, what is meant by the separated material energy of Krishna? So Prabhupada was drinking a glass of milk, and he immediately said, this is the separated energy of a cow. Such a beautiful example. And morning walk every day. This is the Pondal program. Temporary Pondal structure. Prabhupada invited his godbrothers to join him on Gaur Purnim Day. They came and very friendly talks. But this was again in front of a huge crowd. And Prabhupada gave initiation. We both got Brahminical initiation. Prabhupada established the Ananta Shesha, a very tiny gold Ananta Shesha with a jewel, for the groundbreaking ceremony for the QVP. Brahminical initiation. Vishaka took this, and I took one of her. And at that time, Prabhupada established mass prasadam distribution every day. He said no one should go hungry within the 10-mile radius of the temple. And then to Juhu, the famous Juhu temple, and a famous battle the Prabhupada went through to secure that property. There's a book that Prabhupada asked Giriraj Das Brahmachari at the time to write. It's called I'll Build You a Temple. And it was such a dramatic fight that Prabhupada wanted a book on it. He's written a book, a very wonderful account of that time. So I remember being in Prabhupada's room in a very wonderful, clean flat that we had as a temple, a Akash Ganga building overlooking the ocean on the 7th floor. So that was our temple before Jubilee. So I remember sitting in Prabhupada's room, and this man came in. He offered Prabhupada the Juhu property. That was Mr. Nair. And I looked at Mr. Nair, and he was very nervous and sweating and shaking. I was very suspicious. For those of you who know the story, Mr. Nair offered the land of Prabhupada and tried to get it back. And you don't do that with a devotee, or to speak of an acharya. He made a very unfortunate He passed away in a very unfortunate situation. So the day after that Mr. Nye offered the property, we went in a taxi with Prabhupada to the land. And he knew that property because he was daily going to Srimati Maharaji and reading Bhagavatam. Srimati Maharaji lived in that area. And she was the owner of Scindia Steamship Company. And she gave Prabhupada a free ticket to America. So she knew that property, and Prabhupada knew that area very well. He immediately wanted to purchase the property, and he made arrangements to do that. And also to build a temporary temple for the current glorious Juhu temple came up. And this is the Hare Krishna land. This is the first Guru Puja. The Brahmananda Swami bought Prabhupada some pure silver slippers. You can barely see them at the foot of the asasana. And this is Haridas Prabhu. Haridas was the head of ISKCON television in India for many years. Does anybody know his story? His background, how he came to Krishna consciousness? This is one of the most amazing stories. Would you like to hear? Yes. Haridas was a thief in jail. And one day he got a Back to Godhead magazine, and he saw a picture of Prabhupada on the back cover, and Prabhupada was wearing a golden watch. So he was thinking, when I get out, I'm going to meet this man and steal his watch. We came to the temple, and the first devotees he met was Vishaka and myself. We both had our cameras. He was paying special attention to our cameras. Anyway, he stayed and became a devotee. And this is his initiation. So after initiation, he went to Prabhupada and confessed, Prabhupada, I had such a horrible desire. I wanted to steal your watch. And Prabhupada heard that. He took off his own watch and gave it to him. Anyway, Haridas got into media and did tremendous service for many years. Spreading Krishna consciousness through all the major TV stations in India. And then Prabhupada would distribute prasadam every night. He insisted that he distribute the prasadam, not anyone else. He distributed to, the rich, the poor, the beggars, the little kids, everyone. He took great pleasure distributing prasadam. Actually, in just a week or so ago, we were at the Sydney farm, and we gave this. Did we give the presentation? Maybe we gave this presentation there. I can't keep track of where I am or what I've done. But anyway, I had one lady who was a little girl at that time. She said, at that time I received prasad from Prabhupada in his hand. She was a small girl. And she said, I'll never forget that. And she was about maybe 7 years old. Just that little gesture of Prabhupada distributing prasad to that young girl, she'll never forget. So this is the groundbreaking ceremony of the Juhu property. At that time, actually, Vishaka and I served in Juhu for 2.5 years. We didn't go back. I forgot about my master's thesis. My professors were wondering what happened to John. Anyway, we did go back after 2.5 years. And I asked Prabhupada, should I finish my master's degree in photography? And the first thing he said, how long will it take? I said, a few months. So then he said, you can go ahead and finish. So eventually I got the degree. But at this time in June, we got a letter from Karanga Prabhu, who was the head of the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. His idea was to have a film on ISKCON, because at that time there were no movies on ISKCON. So Prabhupada liked the idea and actually financed that film. He gave $16,000 from his book fund to fund the film. At that value today is over $100,000. So Prabhupada knew the value of media, and we didn't understand the value of media. Even then, everybody was mad after movies, and even more today. How many have seen this movie? Has anyone seen it? A few. Yeah, this was shown widely and released in 1974 in Prabhupada's room in Mayapur. Prabhupada's room in Mayapur was very small, if anyone's ever been here. So there were sannyasis, there were GBC, there were presidents, and they were packed in the room. And Vishaka she couldn't get in. She was standing outside the window. So Prabhupada at one point before the show starts, he saw her, and he mentioned for her to come in and sit next to him. And then the sannyasis and the big leaders had to move. Prabhupada looked at him and he said, "Ladies first." So this is a camera, very big and bulky and heavy. And that padding around the camera is meant to keep it quiet. Prabhupada didn't like noisy cameras. And then this is a tape recorder. The sound was recorded separately from the visual. And this is our hand-wound editing machine. We could never wind it at the right speed, at 24 frames a second. There was a lot of guesswork in making this film. And you can see under narration the name of Howard Wheeler. Howard Wheeler is Hare Krishna Prabhu. He worked on the script. If you ever get a chance to read his books, he's a great writer. He wrote one book called Hare Krishna Explosion. So again, Prabhupada's incredible potency. This is about 7 years after Prabhupada came to America. Thousands of books being printed and distributed all over the world. Try to cover all aspects of the movement. Prabhupada being greeted by the Chief Minister of UP. When Prabhupada saw this scene of cows, 40 actually was shot in slow motion. When Prabhupada saw this, he said, the cows are floating. Can you fix it? And he said, "No, Prabhupada, this is a special effect, slow motion." Prabhupada had never seen slow motion. He liked movies, but old-time movies. So Prabhupada said, "Then it was okay." This is the last scene. Prabhupada dancing at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in London. So all these early films are available on that YouTube channel, Hare Krishna Film Classics. And also the Hare Krishna movie, the latest Hare Krishna movie. Hare Krishna, the mantra of the movement, and the Swami Prabhupada on Prabhupada's life. How many have not seen that film? Have not seen it? Everyone here has seen it? Yeah, we continue to try to distribute that film because of the profound effect it has on people. To see Prabhupada's story. And to see Prabhupada speaking, walking, moving. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked Krishna, how does a man of transcendence, how does he speak, how does he walk, how does he sit? So really a movie or being the physical presence is the only way to understand that. But just think only one generation back of gurus, we have no films and no audio. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're very fortunate to have this. All the audio, Prabhupada, all the video, and so forth. We should take advantage of it. Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati said, just by seeing the Vaishnava, one's auspicious life has begun. So if you've seen the movie, please try to share it. I have some movie flyers here. There's a QR code on flyers, so that'll take you to the YouTube channel. So on the YouTube channel, we actually have the full movie in all 8 major Indian languages: Hindi, Bengali, Gujarati, Marathi, Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam, and Telugu. Is that right? So everyone in India has the opportunity to see this movie. So please try to spread it around. If you have relatives who don't speak English, it's dubbed in those languages. And I'll leave these flyers here. You can take a photo of the front, or just take the QR code. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Just a quick question. Many devotees talk about the profound experience of meeting Prabhupada, and I just wanted to know from your experience, what aspects of Prabhupada you felt weren't able to be captured on film?
Was not able to be captured?
Yes.
Well, just being in his presence is very, very powerful. He sort of filled the room with his presence. So that can't be duplicated, but you can have the same transcendental experience even now. Prabhupada's available for everyone. Prabhupada wanted us to become like him. I was in Prabhupada's room in Mumbai in early days in Juhu, before the big temple was built. And one man came in full of obeisances and started glorifying Prabhupada. And he didn't stop. He went on for several minutes. And finally Prabhupada looked at him and he said, "You become like me." And I was shocked, become like Prabhupada. But actually Prabhupada wanted us all to become like him, pure in mind and heart. And that's available to everyone. And if we can do that, we can have the same transcendental experience, being with Prabhupada, and eventually back home, back together. Another beautiful moment was we were Prabhupada was in his room getting massage and then bath. He came out of his room going toward the kitchen for prasadam in a life member's home, very nice home. So Prabhupada came out of his room. We were lined up on both sides of Prabhupada's path to the dining room. And Prabhupada passed by us, and he smelled so wonderfully with sandalwood oil, and just had his massage, and he had beautiful new clothes, saffron clothes. And he floated by us, and he said, "Back home, back to Gandhi." And that was, I just wanted to follow him, but unfortunately, we weren't a leader at that time. And just the leaders were there, and they took lunch with Prabhupada. So we can always, we have that opportunity. We should take it very seriously to become pure ourselves. Then we can have big influence. There's just one person with pure consciousness to see what Prabhupada did for the world. Yes.
Did you ever have the opportunity to come to Australia and photograph Srila Prabhupada on any of his visits?
No, I never got the opportunity to come to Australia when Prabhupada was here. But there's one devotee, he was a friend of the movement, William Kerr. he did a lot of, he was going to university and he was studying film, so he did one project on the temple. He shot a lot of 16mm film, which was a great service he did. I wish I had gone. We tried to be around as much as possible with Prabhupada during those 6 years. Yeah, there's some wonderful films of Prabhupada in Australia, as you know. Anything else? So how are we doing for time? What time does the program usually go for? Go to?
7:30.
7:30.
So, yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Should we have kirtan? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.